Welcome, everybody, to the December 15th meeting of the Franklin Municipal Planning Commission. Thanks, everybody, for being here. We will start by a review of our minutes for the meeting in November. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, and all in favor say aye. Aye. No? The ayes have it. All right, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, if there are any items that you'd like to discuss with the commission tonight that are not on the agenda, this is your moment in bright lights and fame. Please come forward. If not, we will move on. All right, thank you. Then, Catherine, any announcements?
Yes, I'd like to announce that Gary Luffman will be leaving the city. He's getting his long-deserved retirement, and he's here this evening to speak to everybody and say goodbye, although I'm sure he'll be here again to be in the audience.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank the Planning Commission and all the 32 years, about 350 meetings I've attended. I can remember when Ann Peterson was a young school teacher. That's how old I am.
Wow.
And she and I have fought among all these projects over the years, but I just wanted to thank the Planning Commission for all these years and appreciate it. I'm still around. Give me a call. Go to lunch sometimes. And good luck in the future on keeping Franklin the best city in America.
Well, thank you, Gary. I'm sure I speak for all the commissioners, and we thank you for all your hard work and diligence throughout these years, and we'll miss your perspective for sure. All right. Anything else, Catherine?
No, that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Moving on, then, is there any non-agenda items that we need to consider tonight?
No,
All right.
there are no non-agenda items.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. Then we'll move on to the consent agenda. These are items that are not considered non-controversial that have been presented for one vote. Items tonight are items 7 through 13. If anyone would like to pull any of these items off the agenda, anyone in the audience, please come forward. Anyone in the staff or on the commission, please state that now. I'm sorry?
10.
Item 10, okay. Any others? All right, then our non-consent agenda tonight will then be items 10, 14, and 15 if that's voted on. So is there a motion for the consent agenda?
Move for approval as amended.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, item 10, Hearth at Franklin subdivision, final plat revision to the lot lines of 4 existing parcels on 12.35 acres on property along both sides of Fulton Greer Lane.
Staff recommends approval.
All right, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this item other than the applicant?
I'm just here to answer any questions that I can.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, is there a motion before we start discussion?
I think, didn't we get one? Oh, no, you just
Yeah.
made the recommendation.
Is there a motion for this project? Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion, Ms. Peterson?
If you look on this, on the front page of the staff comments and report, it states that a great deal of this is within the floodplain, and I wanted to ask some questions, although I've gotten some of them answered from the staff, but there is so much of this that was allowed to be built on because it was an existing plat. But I understand that you kind of separated out the part that's not in the floodplain, is that right?
Well, actually, what we did, we had a site plan approved on this property back a few months ago, and a condition of that approval was that we plat the property because we felt like, and this was after dealing with the Harpeth Village retail piece that's out there today, that it wasn't a good idea to plat it. However, there were some issues with Fulton Greer Lane and that sort of thing of the dedication for that. So we submitted the plat, And really, the purpose of it was to address the condition approval on the site plan. Also, we've added a couple of lots, and specifically I can speak. Lot 1, that is an existing cell tower that's been there for, I think, several years. And since we're platting it, we wanted to just make that its own separate lot that follows a lease line there. And then Lot 4 is actually a lease tract of land that goes with the Harpeth Village property. And so, since it was a condition to plat it, those were going to be handled with some complicated lease agreements. We decided to just go ahead and make those lots. But the site plan that we had approved for the assisted living facility is on Lot 3.
Well, I did notice that Lot 4 goes, the lot line goes through the building. That's the existing building on it.
The lot line for Lot 4, the Zaxby's lot actually crosses over both, it's the northern lot line of Lot 4. And that's not a lot line we're creating. That's actually a lot line that has been there for years and years. And so when the site plan for Harpeth Village was approved back several years ago and the building permit was issued for that Zaxby's, it was on top of that lot line.
I understand that was part of a
Correct, that's part of a unified development.
Correct.
unified
Yes.
development,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
that it didn't matter to them. But it
Correct.
just seemed strange to me whenever I looked at it.
Yes, ma'am.
And if it wasn't part of a unified development, it would be a bigger deal then. But
Okay.
since it is, the interior lot lines don't matter.
Well, as I say, there's just so much of this. It's in the floodplain, including, I guess, a part of that Lot 1, if not the entirety of Lot 1 is in the floodway, not just the floodplain.
I believe that's correct. Both lots 1 and 2 are, and there's no plans for development, obviously, because of that. But that's really the primary reason for the plat was because it was a condition of approval of the site plan. So.
Just wanted to see this because it is a definitely not typical plat for us in Franklin. Sure.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? All right, seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Item number 14, amend the South Hall character area section of the Franklin Land Use Plan to allow attached dwellings in the new Special Area 8.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This land use plan amendment request is submitted, as you noted, to add Special Area 8 to the South Hall character area. And that would essentially change the current policy for this area to allow attached residential units. I believe you were provided, there's an aerial image on the back of your staff report. It's a little bit darker, so I wanted to provide this additional exhibit, which generally shows where this is. It's within the Longview development. So the proposed Special Area 8 would be located generally where that hand is moving on the screen. And then the second slide is also the aerial image that you have in your packet. So staff really want to present 3 reasons why staff is recommending disapproval of the request. There are numerous concerns. Really, the first relates to incompatible uses. As the aerial shows, to the west, you have county facilities. To the north of the existing PB&J daycare there, you have a rock crusher site that's also part of the county facilities, and then internal access roads for transport of that material. I provided a couple slides here to show you, it's a better shot of kind of the surrounding land uses. This is the existing infrastructure in there now. I'll also note the images here are a slight delay, so in the upcoming ones, as far as years go, you'll see the county facilities not constructed yet. Those are currently constructed, and I'll show you that in a second. So here's the rock crusher. The existing PB&J daycare is located generally in this area. So on the next slide, this site's currently constructed. This back area is a parking lot. Shows you the internal access drives, the surrounding uses to the rear of the site there. And then this is the south end of the site. So this would be the south boundary where the amendment's requested. So that would be an amendment to add special area 8. So again, that's the first reason, incompatible land uses. It's not a suitable area for residential. Staff feels, in the long run, we don't want to create incompatible uses where we can prevent it. And staff feels that this is one of those locations. Second, in the pre-application meeting, there's some minutes in there. Staff had some concerns over how those were worded. Up front, we had, noted the concerns to the applicant. There was some discussion about traffic at the pre-application meeting. While in some cases mixed use, there may be benefits from decreased traffic. In this case, we feel that the incompatible uses, it's more of a land use issue than a traffic issue. And in this case, those far outweigh any benefits from decreased traffic in this location. Third, in the packet submitted by the applicant, they mentioned current economic conditions. While staff, does recognize we're in, difficult circumstances and it may be difficult to market property, this property right now is located within the LI zoning district, which is pretty much one of the most wide open zoning districts within the city. It allows numerous uses, retail, commercial, office. So, in some ways, the concern is the attached residential adjacent to those intents, for all intents and purposes, is defined by the zoning ordinance at current heavy industrial uses. Therefore, as stated before, staff is recommending disapproval to add special area 8 to the land use plan. So if you need me to, go back on the slides, feel free to ask me. I know I went through that briefly. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
And Mr. Chairman, I would add that we're sort of in that situation now where we had existing industrial and residential came in both on Alpha and Beta near to Polk Place. And now we're coming back asking to downzone Alpha and Beta because the industrial uses have become a nuisance to the residents. We don't want to continue to create those kind of problems going forward.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to speak to this item other than the applicant? All right, see none. Is there someone representing the applicant?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May I distribute my PowerPoint printout?
Sure, please do. But after you do that, let us know your name and
And I have one for
all
staff
that.
also.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We'll share.
Yes.
First of all, I want to say thank you, both to y'all, because y'all are volunteers, and a lot of times people don't really understand how much time it takes to sit on the planning commission and read all this stuff and try to figure out exactly what it means and what it does for our city. Secondly, I want to thank the staff. They have dealt with this issue with the utmost professionalism. And even though they recommended disapproval, they were professional every step of the way, and they helped my team through a somewhat confusing and unfamiliar process. And indeed, this is only the second time that I've ever been before this body. I'll attempt to be concise during this presentation as to why this request is in the best interest of the city, and especially Columbia Pike Avenue Gateway. And I'm sure that you're going to have some questions, which I welcome any time along the way, just so long as we don't get off track and it doesn't chew up too much of my allotted time. As a little bit of background, Columbia Avenue, as we all know, is a key gateway into downtown Franklin. And it is in transition away from the old industrial uses to service, office, and retail. And that's undeniable. And that was actually started long before we had Kroger and Target out there, and long before the special area, character area was ever developed. Longview is the largest infill site along this gateway. It's a total of approximately 50 acres. Final approval from this body for the Longview subdivision included 19 lots ranging from 1 acre to 5.8 acres. The approved plans set aside almost 5 acres or 10% of the development for open space, stream buffers, and a private park along Columbia Avenue. In the first phase of 8 lots, we installed underground utilities, sidewalks, and a linear biodetention areas all along our roads. And this was within a light industrial area. It was by design not to look like a light industrial area. Many of these amenities were not required at the time by the city's ordinances and were done because we recognized at the time that Columbia Avenue was in transition and that this gateway was a gateway, and we believed that sustainability and issues such as stormwater treatment were marketable. We felt that our concept would capture a certain type of business who valued sustainability and indeed was the type of business that Franklin was seeking. Longview's LI zoning was not changed at our approval. And even though at that time the approval of grocery and pharmacy were prohibited, the LI zoning allowed enough uses that we felt that we're certain that there would be a demand. Initially, half of our first phase lots were under contract even before we started. But with the 2008 financial crisis, only 1 lot was actually closed, and that was the PB&J Day School. Traditional LI uses vanished. All of our retail and restaurant prospects quit returning our phone calls. And even though that story is not unique in the world of commercial real estate, our location and our city is unique. The city of Franklin went to work diligently to simplify the new zoning ordinance and subsequently passed it. The new ordinance is now over 480 pages, replacing the old, much more complicated ordinance of 280 pages. But I was glad because LI was the beneficiary. Grocery and pharmacy uses are now permitted in light industrial zoning. And because of this, we have an opportunity to create a mixed-use development that was never possibly or conceived under the old ordinance without rezoning. This application acknowledges that opportunity, and it moves on it, and it's in the best interest of the city. As I mentioned, the development's uniqueness and the way it's been designed, and being the largest infill site. We have narrow streets, sidewalks, underground utilities, and all of these were not required at the time of light industrial zoning. What are we asking for? We're asking that approximately 25 acres of our site is located here, be called Special Area Plate 8 and allow for attached residential. I want to address the staff's position, and these are actual quotes. Quote, additionally, as text from the land use plan notes, Vulcan Rock Quarry is located 3/4 of a mile from the site and will continue to exist in the long term in its current location, while the applicant notes that the submittal package that the site will possess other uses such as natural buffers to ameliorate the negative externalities associated with the adjacent land uses. Staff feels that the nuisances associated with such uses cannot be buffered and residential uses are not appropriate adjacent or near these uses. That's a direct quote. As you can see, or have seen on the other slide, and on this slide, this is precisely what they're talking about. This is our site right here. And this is Vulcan Materials over here. Now, in the middle of this green thing is a huge, huge mountain. Now, with all due respect to staff, 3/4 of a mile is 4,000 feet. and Vulcan Materials on the backside of a huge mountain on Carter's Creek Pike, directly across the street from Hardison Hills residential subdivision, and within 4,000 feet of a lot of other residential development. I simply disagree with staff that Vulcan is a noxious factor that is so great that this application should be denied. If this logic holds, then what is being said is there should be no development within 4,000 feet of Vulcan, and if 4,000 feet and a mountain are not enough to buffer the residential that I asked for, I respectfully ask what is, 5,000 feet or how much more? Second staff concern was the Williamson County's Highway Department and their quarry. The Highway Department is an entity of the Williamson County government and as such sells no stone. The department stone is used by the department for its needs. Hence, unlike Vulcan Material, which is a commercial entity that operates almost daily, that department operates on an as-needed basis. In other words, it is much, much less than Vulcan by nature. I want to draw your attention on my handout to pages 11 and 12, showing the proposed targeted area by this amendment, and indeed, it is buffered first by the county's parking lot, then by the county's administration building, and last by a huge hill, which does not show up when you look at everything from an aerial photograph. This is the hill right here. This is the county parking lot. This is the county administrative buildings. This buffering and the distance of these should negate any concern that staff had. That addresses the quarry issue. Second, staff notes in their recommendation, quote, second, while the applicant argues that a mixed uses should negate some negative impacts associated with traffic on the Longview site, in this particular instance, the negative land use impact far outweighs any benefits associated with decreased traffic generation and should not be justified to permit attached residential units in this location. Negative land use impacts outweigh any benefits. I disagree with the position that residential use is more negative on traffic than retail or other uses that are already permitted, and I doubt that any traffic engineer would. What is known is that the completion of the already approved Phase 2 of Longview includes Spectrum Drive, which addresses the point that staff makes in their recommendations, and that is, I quote, recognize the Columbia Avenue street plan. Spectrum Drive is planned and located right here and connects to Rolling Hills. The last point they make is that LI zoning district permits a multitude of uses, including office, retail, commercial, restaurants, and light industry, to name a few. Accordingly, as LI zone property, there are numerous uses that are permitted on site. In fact, the LI zoning district is one of the least restrictive districts within the city of Franklin as far as permitted uses are concerned. If the policy for this area changed, incompatible uses would be created. I agree with staff that LI is one of the least restrictive zoning districts in the city of Franklin, but that is the point that we're making here tonight. This is a step toward a mixed-use development which hopefully will contain office, retail, and commercial uses and restaurants, all of which are allowed currently and are more desirable in this location. These uses are not compatible with attached residential. And even the LI zoning definition, LI use definition within the ordinance quotes that it is light manufactured, processing, or assembling of products that are fully enclosed structure where noise, light, and vibrations are not noticeable from adjacent properties. We're asking for this because City of Franklin is a neighborhood, is of neighborhoods and districts. And a neighborhood is what Longview is targeting. The land use plan encourages mixture of uses that support the neighborhood concept. Residential uses should be located within walking distance of shops and services and employment centers, and etc. When well planned and well designed to support other uses such as grocery and pharmacy, daycare, and restaurants, all of this combined is what we are trying to target within Longview. Our objectives are the optimal use to create a mixed-use development and to capitalize already on the approved development layout. In other words, our street plan does not change. We want to balance the residential and non-residential usage. We want to create a community of character and livability that is promoted and promote a neighborhood feel with linked open spaces. The balance of land uses will achieve a physical health and community livability. We're doing this because we know what we already have, and that is that we can do grocery and pharmacy and create this. This is consistent with the desired land use patterns for the area. The land use plan itself on page 10-3 indicates, and by the way, this is on the top of slide 14, or page 14 that you've got in your handout. It indicates that there's a question whether or not light and heavy industrial uses are appropriate along the corridor. And I've highlighted that within that slide. It says Columbia Avenue is the southern gateway to the city of Franklin, moving north, setting as rural, transitioning to the suburban at McHatcher Parkway and to neighborhood at Downs Boulevard. Finally, the corridor transitions to downtown core. Future design concepts should create an ease of transition between these designs, forming a connection within the historic character of downtown while retaining the corridor's traditional character. We do not want to retain light industrial on this corridor. The land use plan also provides for the inclusion of attached residential. This is at the bottom of slide of page 14. Preservation of existing natural amenities, pedestrian connections, and surrounding land uses. The third bullet point that's highlighted says, Special Area 1, consider whether or not light and heavy industrial use is the most appropriate uses for this corridor anymore. In closing, I want to make a few points. Longview is targeting a balanced residential and non-residential land uses, and this amendment is necessary to achieve such balance. Longview is attempting to promote a community character and livability through linked open spaces that emphasizes pedestrian scale. The land use plan encourages mixed-use developments, such as Longview is targeting, that such as Longview is targeting, that are compatible with the surrounding areas in such ways to reinforce a sense of neighborhood and to minimize vehicular trips. Longview is attempting to provide housing options, retail and service uses, and employment centers, along with related public services and community amenities. This is an infill development which encourages, instead of a leapfrog development, it contains open space and parks, and in conclusion, I would ask for you to move for passing of the application amendment of the land use plan.
All right, thank you very much. All right, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve his request.
Okay,
Second.
moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Just a question for staff. How is building residential like this applicant's requested any different from the residential that's approved for Shadow Green?
This is very much the same type of thing as Shadow Green. We do realize that there may be some uses around Shadow Green that are possibly incompatible, and for that reason, each tenant or each homeowner has to sign an agreement that they know that there are nuisance uses. I'm not sure that at this point in time we want to continue that trend in areas that are our only areas left over for industrial and light industrial, and to put more housing into areas that are industrial. There are other locations for housing. Our land use plan is very clear about where housing should go, where industrial should go, and this is not the location for attached housing according to our land use plan and according to the way staff feels about this.
If I'm,
Go ahead, please.
if I might, I live on the other side of this. And guys, if you've never lived in this area, when Rolling Meadows subdivision was built back in the 50s or whatever, it was a coup. It was a black neighborhood, and most black folks in Franklin at that time did not own their own homes. So you could have put it at the bottom of a volcano, and people would have bought lots and built the houses, just to be honest. And ever since my grandparents built the house in 1970, 71 and 72, and, throughout visits and all that, I'll tell you what daily life is like out there. I don't know why, because nobody's ever been able to pick up on it or what, but occasionally, first of all, there's blasting, okay? And I'm farther away from this site than your house will be, and you do feel it. And sometimes you feel it so much your house vibrates, not exaggeration. Years back, if you'll look through some of the city records, we've complained and complained, people have talked about their foundation, everybody goes, oh no, that's just settling and all that. I'm talking about enough to shake your house, to scare you, to make you jump, okay? There's also a firing range that the city and the county shoot. So for people who are going to move here, I want them to know this. Midnight, 1 o'clock, you may hear 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, the amount of dust in this area. I was vehemently opposed to us putting the Habitat houses over on Friendship, Good Hands, and all. I was opposed to that because what we're doing is people who are starving will accept breadcrumbs. So yes, I'll accept a house if I don't have one, but should we allow it? The dust, okay? Yes, they're supposed to water down trucks, but do they? Most of the time not. This is even closer than I am. I'm telling you, I don't think we ought to do this. I really don't. Now, if someone wants to move there and they'll sign a waiver, yeah, but I think if they were to spend a day or two out there, they wouldn't buy out there. I don't think that this is a good idea. Is it to say that we need to increase or we need to keep the amount of light industrial? I'm not really sure. I'm not making a statement on that. But this is not the place. This is, like I said, this is closer than I am. Hardison Hills never should have been built, my opinion. I can only state my opinion, because of what goes on a daily basis. And sometimes you're right, the county doesn't blast every day. Somebody does, and sometimes those blasts are way out of where they should be. I'm talking about shaking your house, scaring you, causing people to jump. So I just want you guys to know, I'm definitely in support of staff on this. I just don't think this is the place.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Now, is the motion to the motion is
The motion to is approve.
Is to approve
To
it.
approve the
the
land
project,
use change. And obviously, the land use change is a serious change. We've gone through a lot of process to get to where we are today, so let's not take that change lightly.
So when we talk about affordable, Mr. Megley, do you all have any idea of what price point houses, or not houses, but units, units will be, how much?
Yes, ma'am, we don't. And there's a reason for that, and that is that this isn't the time to consider that. And I could come in here like I have seen people do, and they wave the carrot of workforce housing or affordable housing in hope of garnering votes. I personally think that if I really don't know what is going to go there, it's not smart of me to do such a thing. The reason this isn't the time to discuss that is because what this does is only modify the land use plan to allow the consideration. This is not a rezoning. We're not coming in for a regulating plan. We're not talking about things like affordability and density. There'll be plenty of opportunity to do that later. What I believe is that we need to look at the concept of creating a mixed-use development in this particular location. And if the city of Franklin doesn't want to create mixed-use development, and I don't believe that's the case because it's always in there, then I guess you say you don't want to do it. But to talk about affordable housing at this time is premature. My guess is, I will say this, I honestly and truly believe that the market for the housing in this area will contain a large component of both affordability and workforce housing. I don't pull that out of the air. I actually did some market study to determine what we were talking about, and it looks like there's a band of quite a few that would be affordable. But I'm not, I don't know. I'm not going to develop the property. I'm going to sell the property. The developer will be back down here to discuss that. I'll try to help them and guide them along the way. But it's not, it probably wouldn't be prudent of me to talk about that if I'm not going to be the guy to ultimately develop it.
Understand?
All right, any other comments?
I just have to say, I mean, I do struggle with this concept. I understand adding the grocery store, the drugstore to light industrial, and I think that's actually a really good use for this piece of property on this corridor, the restaurants in the front, et cetera. Through the green, those things were already existing neighbors when this plan came through. There was some transitional businesses or uses or firing ranges in between it and Vulcan. And I have to tell you, I'm a little concerned about the residential in this particular location. You can feel the blasting miles away from Vulcan. Not a quarter of a mile, not a half a mile, not 3/4 of a mile. You can feel it miles away, and Hardison Hills is much closer to this blasting zone than this particular site would be. But you do back up right to their loading transitions, and I think that dust is going to be an issue, and I think that there's going to be some noise issues. Now, a lot of that shuts down at 5 p.m., but, you know, residential is just not a compatible use with heavy industrial. It's just not. We've learned it time and time again throughout history. And looking at the plan, from the roadway to the property line, there's only about 300 feet, I think, 350 feet, somewhere in there. There needs to be some reasonable buffer from noise, from the dust, from activity there that may be above and beyond what our zoning ordinance asks for, but that's, in my mind, where I'm having really the struggle and having the issue.
Along the south end.
Along the activities of Vulcan, along where where the heavy industrial border is. Now, I just want to just quickly, along Beasley Court and Century Court, there's a question that the land use plan asks. Will this continue to be that light industrial, heavy industrial corridor? And honestly, it's just not as attractive an area right now as some other areas within our 10-county region are to heavy industrial and light industrial. It just doesn't have the draw to it. It's too cumbersome to get in and off the interstate. There's some positives to its location, but it's not a big draw for those particular uses. So over time, I could see some of those fading out. There's some empty square footage there right now. And maybe it's because of the same downturn that's caused you to kind of change your mind a little bit and rethink some things. But it's a good question. We don't know the answer to that question. All we know right now is that there are heavy industrial uses in there that, in my mind, just simply are not compatible with residential.
Okay,
And
where are the heavy industrial uses?
on Beasley Court and on...
How about this right here?
Yeah, exactly.
And you're still talking about this?
Well, like I said, I mean, I don't even know that we can quantify the number of rooftops that are in that zone that feels the vibrations from
Right.
Vulcan. It's something that
Right.
a big portion of our town lives with daily.
Right.
It's certainly not the most attractive thing to live next to.
Right.
Mr. Magnin, we're not going to get into back and forth at this point.
Okay.
Let's let the commission talk.
Mr. Chairman, one thing that comment was made, and I think
Mr.
by
Magnin?
staff.
No,
and it has
we're
been
not
brought
taking
up.
comments right now, sir.
Okay.
If the commission has a question for you, we'll address that to you.
Okay. No
But
problem.
you've had your opportunity to speak. We need to have the commission speak now. All right, any other comments? Mr. Harrison?
I support this proposal because I think over the years, we've seen the transition of Columbia Avenue as the heavy industrial is moving out, and we've got different uses coming in. I even had a business down there 10 years ago, and we felt the quarry blasting occasionally, but it was never anything severe. I think this is a good idea as we try to improve Columbia Avenue. There's been talking about improving it for years. This is an opportunity to put it, in my mind, in the right direction, so I'll support this.
Okay, any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to
Yes,
say that
please.
the area SH7 is behind Chick-fil-A there. Obviously, I don't see any difference from that area versus the difference that applicant's asking for. I know our constituents from Pope Place and the other neighborhoods that voiced their opinion last month regarding the downzoning of industrial to light industrial. If you poll them, they'd rather have it all residential through there. I think the opportunity to have a walkable, I think will improve Columbia Avenue sooner than later. I think the sidewalk, I think the enjoyment of being only 0.5 of a mile to 5 points creates a wonderful venue there, and I just feel like that they need that flexibility in that community. I'm supporting of it.
All right, any other comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Staff has a comment.
Okay.
I just wanted to add, there's a section in your staff report on page 3 that basically says if the planning commission, there's a motion on the floor for approval. That would be the proposed language, so take a careful look at that. It adds, it's verbatim from the materials submitted by the applicant. On condition number 4, or statement, policy number 4, it adds local area street plan. I think Mr. Magley mentioned that. But the big difference, again, is number 1, just adding those attached residential units, just to make you aware. So that's in the staff report on page 3.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other comments? All right, we're going to vote. The motion is for approval with a proper second. So if you vote yes, you are voting for approval to change the land use plan. So all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, would you please raise your hand? All right, there's 4. So against? Before? Did you get that? All right, looks like I have the opportunity to vote that I don't normally get. After listening to the discussion and some of the comments, I tend to agree with staff. I believe it's not compatible use of this location, and the chairman will vote no, so the motion fails. All right. Okay, we move to item 15. This is
Mr. Chairman,
revisions to the plan.
as you're aware, we are changing the current concept regulating plan to a new plan called the development plan, which will take one step out of the planning process and allow for the planning process to move more rapidly for the developer and also for staff. That will mean that there will only be one plan coming before you. So we do need to do something with the fees associated with both of those plans. However, the one plan coming before you will be far more complicated than either the concept or the regulating plan. So what staff is proposing at this point in time is to cut the plan fee in half, where the concept plan was $400, the regulating plan was another $400. We're asking for $600 for the development plan. And that takes into consideration the time and staff effort it will take to review a more complicated plan, but also takes into consideration that we're only doing it once. And
Okay.
staff would recommend your approval.
All right, is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak to this item? Okay, is there a motion on the floor?
Move for approval with staff recommendation.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded, any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. All right, before we adjourn, I hope everybody has a wonderful Christmas holiday season and enjoys time with family, and enjoyed this year with you guys. Look forward to next year. So I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.